Hey guys, it's Marty and AJ with Check Your Bias. We've got a little bit of a curveball episode today. We had scheduled James Gagliano, former FBI agent, current legal analyst for CNN, to come on and talk with us about the Michael Flynn case and to kind of get some clarity, to try to get some clarity with James and Marty, two guys that have had their feet on the ground within the Bureau, about really a depth of information coming out of that case. But with the Minneapolis killing today of the handcuffed,
chroned out African-American citizen,
right, by the police, the conversation just went in that direction, and we took it, we ran with it, and I think it's a really, really valuable episode. I hope you give it a listen. There's some really in-depth perspectives, I think, that James shared. And
James is always an excellent guest and full of great information. He's getting ready to go on CNN tonight to talk about it a little bit, but so we got a little preview.
Yeah, so we're going to turn this around. We're going to post it today, and it's an important episode.
Spit that shit out, man! Downtown flip script.
Well, I apologize, guys. I've been, this morning with this whole Minneapolis case. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of it. It's yet another, viral video that has been pushed out there. But, I've watched it, and I'm always cautious and careful. And I always tell people all the time that, a 2-minute video clip, there's often more to it than just that. You have to be cautious. You have to wait for all the facts to come in. And I still stand by that. But I hate to use the term troubling or unsettling because that sounds benign and milquetoast. But Marty, I'll tell you, the cop that, had his knee on this guy's neck during the video for 2 minutes or so, it's got eerie reminiscing of the Eric Garner deal out on Staten Island. The guy says, "I can't breathe." You don't see what happened to lead up to it. Apparently there was a violent struggle on an arrest, and a number of cops were called into it. But, it picks up with a bystander video and this cop with his knee in his neck. And, between the three of us, I see a cop that probably had enough and got pissed. And, you just can't do that. You got to, as soon as they submit, as soon as they become compliant, that's when you ratchet it all the way back down too. And in this instance, we'll have to wait till the autopsy comes in and obviously the toxicology reports and all those other attendant things. But man, it doesn't look good. I'm not going to be able to defend this guy. And unfortunately, it's a tough thing to do because, I hate to pile on with just what we know now, but man, it just doesn't look good. I have a feeling this thing is going to blow up in the figurative sense. Because CNN is pretty much covering it wall to wall right now. So
really, wow,
yeah, and I don't think it's milquetoast to say, listen, we need to wait for all the facts. These videos.
Yeah, I know.
You can say it looks bad. Yeah, it looks troubling. it looks troubling, but let's.
But if you say that, the anti-cop folks, the haters, the Black Lives Matter, a lot of those groups out there, then you're just defending the indefensible. You just can't, admit when cops are wrong. And look, with what I've seen, I'm not going to defend this guy. I don't think this guy acted appropriately, but I'd like to be patient and wait for the facts to come in. But unfortunately, the way the business works right now is they need hot takes. So I was just on the phone most of the morning with the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, who I'm, on the board of directors with now, going, hey, did anybody see anything in this that I didn't see? Because if you did, help me understand, because I can't defend this. Right. And I'm not going to defend this. So somebody give me something that I missed. And I got to tell you, all the folks, they were like, nope. That's our take too. So
yeah, interesting. So how freely can you express that when you're on a CNN?
Chris Cuomo is probably my closest friend at the network, but Chris will always give me a platform and always give me an opportunity. But I understand that I'm not going into a home game here on this. He will, if this segment goes tonight, and it looks like it's going to, he will certainly give me a platform to kind of say what I just said. Of course, the nice thing about podcasts and radio is you get a lot of time to flesh it out and you can provide context.
Right.
On TV, I've got 30 seconds to get all of that in and provide context where I go, I think the officer was wrong. However, there are some, 2.5 million interactions between police officers and the public every year. A vastly infinitesimal amount of them involve the use of force. And then when you go beyond that, even more infinitesimal is the percentage of them that are questionable. And this certainly is one that, I'm certainly not going to defend with what I see right now, but I think everybody's entitled to due process and the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and I don't think your job up there is really to defend this guy. I think it's to analyze the situation, and I think it's
100%,
perfectly
100%.
sensible.
And you know what? And you know what the mission of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund is? It is to defend, meaning providing funds for legal defense of wrongfully accused officers. I don't suspect that this guy is going to fall into that category.
Right. But they've got to flesh that out first.
I'll call it straight.
But they got to flesh that out first. And advocating for due process, Chris Cuomo or no one can argue against that. I mean, you can say this looks terrible, looks troubling based on what we see, but let's let this case unfold. And instead of having it unfold in the media, let's let the investigators. I mean, obviously we have to deal with what we see, and it's outrageous. And but I call for due process. I'm James Gagliano. Damn it.
Look, except for that last line you just said there, I think I could take exactly what you said word for word, and that is exactly how I feel about it. So I think we're on the same sheet of music. But yeah, I have a feeling this is going to get more play in the media. This guy died. I mean, obviously there's some parallels with the Eric Garner case, and there's others that aren't parallel. Garner was an obese man. He was pushing 400 pounds, had heart disease, had asthma, had all these underlying medical conditions, and refused to be subdued, refused to go in that day. I don't know what happened in this instance beforehand. I don't know how violent the struggle was. But regardless of that, once the guy is handcuffed behind his back, face first down on the asphalt, you take your fucking knee off his neck, and you show that you deserve to wear a badge and you deserve to be an armed instrument of the state. And this guy didn't do that.
That's a powerful statement, James. As John Q. Citizen here between the three of us, that's a powerful statement, and one that I hope people take in, and I hope you're able to express that tonight, because when things like this blow up and it becomes such a big part of the news cycle, and it's happenings that people didn't realize, I think, happened before these videos and things like that came out, right? Telephone videos. But so to then hear someone who comes from law enforcement say it so forcefully like that, I think it's a voice that needs to be heard, right? And
James, you can say exactly what I said in the beginning. I know you've had all these thoughts. So we're not illuminating you, but and then what you just said, and together they're not inconsistent at all. You can start off with the due process, but hey, here's how it looks, and here's what you're supposed to do in these situations if we're seeing all the facts.
Yeah, no, 100%, and that is where it's at, and. Like I said, I just hate that it is something that is going to inflame a particular narrative. My doctoral pursuit is an officer-involved shooting. So, that's the furthest to the right on the continuum of use of force. And, I've been looking into this now for, 2+ years. I've got another year to go on this thing to finish this. And the narrative does not, as we know all too well, the narrative that's out there does not always fit the actual facts and the truth. But the bottom line is, it's incidents like this that can inflame passions, and I can understand it, when you see them, because the media loves to blow it up, but it still happened. It's not like somebody made this officer do that. What this officer did with what I see, and again, I see a small clip, with what I see was the inappropriate application of force. Do I believe that he meant to kill this man? 100% no. Do I think he went to work that day and said, I'm going to hunt down an African-American man and I'm going to kill him? No, I don't believe that. But do I believe that his unacceptable acceleration, escalation of use of force was a product of the fact that his pride, his ego, his hubris got in the way, and he was pissed off. And when the guy's laying there on the ground, effectively subdued in your custody, now you're responsible for him because he can't help himself. I don't think he was mature enough, adult enough, a human being enough to go, okay, I got to pull it back now.
Well, I mean,
he's in custody. Everybody's safe. I got to pull it back.
I mean, there it is. There's, you said it all right there. And very well put, man.
Yeah. And we're not, he's not, he shouldn't have been carrying the badge. I mean, if you can't dial that, that's a bad combination, a lethal combination, hubris and anger.
Ego.
Well,
right?
I'll tell you what, brother, both of you, Marty, from your law enforcement perspective, AJ is your wickedly smart, I don't want to say sidekick. You guys are a duo, but with your civilian perspective and I mean that sincerely, I would love for you guys to take a look at the video, give me your perspective on it, and tell me if your take is any different from mine. I have been furiously on the phone this morning talking to everybody and anybody saying, help me see a different side to this, because the side I see right now says the officer was wrong. Now, that doesn't mean I have to condemn the entire profession. That doesn't mean I have to buy into the hate and the vitriol and the, cops are racist theme. But I cannot justify defending what I saw in the video. And if somebody sees it differently, and Marty, you tell me, or AJ, you tell me, hey, here's my take on this, I am all ears. But I got to tell you guys, it's about 7-0 thus far with people I've spoken to. 5 were law enforcement professionals, all retired, and 2 were civilians. And yeah, nobody gave me any breathing room on this one.
James, we have time. If you have time, we have time. We can pull it up right now and look at it.
Yeah, if you guys want to do that, let me know when you want to start, doing this. I mean, let me know. Do you got to do a header on the top of this thing, or I know you want to talk about Flynn?
Yeah, we can reintroduce you real quick, and then the last time you were on, we said when the occasion arises, come back on, and I kind of pictured something like this, like what happened in Minneapolis, that we'd reach back out to you. So it's kind of funny, but we're happy to cut all of this out if you need us to, or to include it in the episode, if that's all right.
I mean, I was speaking unfiltered, off the cuff, but I mean, I don't say anything in private conversations that I don't say in public. I think that's one of those things. I don't have a filter, but I'm always happy because I don't have to worry about somebody taping me and me not knowing that they did so, because, I call it as I see it. And I think because I piss off both sides, that makes me a happy individual. If you guys think that there's parts of that or a chunk of that you can use and trim it up and make it work and make it fit, I didn't say anything there that I'm not proud to own.
Great, man. That's good news, because I really mean it when, as a citizen, the way that you put that, it makes me trust your opinion.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. Look, I'm still, as my wife tells me all the time, I can't get out of my own way sometimes, but I do fiercely attempt to call things and say things and speak truth to power. I mean, like I say to people all the time, you are not, I get these people that follow me on Twitter, and they'll get angry about it. I'm like, look, you're not following me to be in an echo chamber. I'm not going to give you that comfort. So if you're looking for an echo chamber, go somewhere else. And those are the people with 1 million followers. They have this large following of people because they're always on that side of things. This is me. This is, sometimes you're going to agree with me and sometimes you're not. And as long as we can do so civilly and do it without being disagreeable, isn't that what life is supposed to be about?
It's supposed to be.
In a civil society, I guess. I should have caveated it.
No, it's supposed to be. Hey, we're going to play that thing right now and take a quick look. So,
okay.
This 10-minute video posted to Facebook overnight shows Minneapolis police officers holding down a man. One officer uses his knee to pin the man's neck down. I can breathe. Several times during the arrest, the man tells officers that he's struggling to breathe and begs for some relief. Some people gathered at the scene try to help. That's moving, bro. That's moving, bro. You should stop him breathing right there, bro. But as officers work to keep onlookers back, the man on the ground appears to move less and less. 5 minutes into the video, the man seems to be motionless, and the police officer's knee is still on his neck. He's not moving. 7 minutes into the video, an ambulance arrives. When an EMT does the first pulse check, officers still have the man pinned. And when he's loaded onto the ambulance, his hands are still cuffed. I really just killed that man. Police explained what led up to the incident in an overnight news conference.
After he got out, he physically resisted officers. Officers were able to get the suspect into handcuffs, and officers noticed that the male was going into medical distress. Officers called for an ambulance. He was transported to Hennepin County Medical Center, where he died a short time later.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, he had his back up there too. It looks like he was handcuffed the whole time. In that 7 minutes, I mean, with your on the neck when the guy's handcuffed on the ground, that's a tough one, dude. I mean, is that what? Yeah,
that's.
And he's got.
I don't know how you defend that.
If it was so troublesome, I mean, he's got a back up there who just seems to be kind of like keeping traffic away, or keeping the crowd at bay.
Yep. It's really interesting that there's citizens around kind of calling it out, and I don't know, man. For me, when I see it again, like you said, he's subdued. Why is the knee still on the neck? What purpose is that serving? And also, it's troubling to me that that his partner or the backup was there and was clearly, focusing on keeping other people at bay. But is there no time in that situation where you go to your partner and say, you can take the knee off now? Are you trying to not have your partner lose face? Like what's going on there?
Yeah. And it's tough. And again, I'm not trying to cop-splain, and it sounds like that when I go, I understand that tensions are high. I understand the adrenaline is up. I understand, you're in an environment now where, cops are scrutinized every second of the day. We call it the viral video effect, where cops are nervous about even appropriate engagements with citizens because the fear of, somebody getting in their face or somebody trying to obstruct them or somebody trying to videotape them. And it's a tough job. Look, I don't have to tell you guys, you certainly understand that it's a tough job. At some point in time, in that instance, and again, I am making this declarative statement, bereft of all the details of what happened before and obviously what's going to happen afterwards with an autopsy and toxicology reports. Not that him being on drugs changes anything, but were there underlying conditions that contributed or are attributed to his death? But watching that, if I'm the guy, if Marty's the guy on scene there, I go to the guy and I kind of tap him on the shoulder and say, we're good. All right, move over, just move down a little bit. We got him under, we got one under, as we say. He's under arrest, handcuffed behind the back. He can't hurt himself. He can't hurt anybody else. The struggle is over. No matter what happened before that point, you cannot allow that to affect how you then deal with somebody in your custody. Now you're responsible for that person.
Well, yeah.
Now you're responsible.
And the video said that he was there for 7 minutes. I mean, why would you have your knee on his neck for 7 minutes if you're handcuffed? And if he's flailing, I mean, his partner could have, shackled his feet unless they didn't have any zip ties or anything. I don't know.
If he's handcuffed on his
prone down,
right? He's going to have a hard time getting up. He's going to flop around. Like Marty said, you can shackle the feet. They've got zip ties. You could zip tie his feet. I mean,
yep.
Yeah, man.
That's a tough one, but I'll always say, I'm going to wait for due process, but I would definitely come out strongly like you've been doing and saying this just does not look right. And that's just, I always
difficult. Not that they're asking me to defend it, but they want my take on it. But
sure. I mean, I don't think there's much defense for putting your knee on the guy's neck when he's handcuffed for 7 minutes, but his actual death, if there were maybe that's a case of, police being overly zealous as opposed to murder. I mean,
but isn't it contributory? Like even if he has underlying issues, it's contributory. It
could be, but that's the only, there could be contributory factors involved there. But yeah, when I look at that and see him, the guy apparently, allegedly, he's handcuffed, right? And he's laying there asking for help, and that he's saying he can't breathe. And for 7 minutes, having your knee on the guy's neck, yeah, that's just I can't really defend it either, except to just say, look, it looks horrible. Let's let due process unfold, and we'll just go from there. But yeah, right now, bad look. And
yeah, it's a tough time because things can get whipped up, and obviously with the viral video effect and people being able to upload videos, sometimes bereft of context, and sometimes with important aspects of it trimmed out purposefully. I'm not suggesting that that's what happened here. I think I heard the mayor of Minneapolis speak, and I don't know if there was a malfunction with the officer's body camera before that. I would certainly like to, as most people would, see what transpired beforehand. But here's the caveat. Even with that, I don't care if the guy spit in your face. I don't care if the guy took a swing at you. I don't care if the guy was resistant and non-compliant and, whatever. The bottom line is, once he is cuffed behind the back, as Marty will tell you, and face down on the pavement, and I understand he can still struggle and he can still, injure people, whatever, but once he's in that prone position and you have the numbers, meaning it's not one officer on 4 people, it's multiple officers on one guy, that's when we're supposed to be the adult in the room, and we're supposed to take that step back and say, okay, there's a struggle. Everybody's safe. Let's take a deep breath here. Let's bring this guy. He's in our custody now. Let's bring him to face justice and let justice be swift. But it's not my job now to extract. And I'm not suggesting that I know that this officer was so angry and so riled up, but I've been in that position. I'm sure Marty's been in that position. And I know how difficult it can be, but it's also incumbent upon us, because we are armed instruments of the state, to take that deep breath, take a step back and go, I'm not going to get mine now, because that's the ballroom brawler kind of aspect of, you did something to me, I'm going to get you back. That's not what we do. That's not what we do. And again, I don't want to tar this officer that way and suggest that I know that that was the case. But from what I can tell, from what I saw, I know people like that.
Yeah.
I know guys that you had to grab and you had to say, dude, take a chill. I get it. You're hyped up here. Go over there, grab a cup of coffee. Go over there. I'm going to put so and so on this to handle this. Let's take a step back. And I just don't think that happened here.
Well, and that's where I, as a citizen, I am really troubled by the partner's behavior there, the backup's behavior, in that it's just a blank slate of just trying to keep people at bay and no other concern about anything else, like no engagement in anything else. And
AJ, the only thing that I can look at, and again, I don't know any of those facts or details. Was this a junior officer a senior officer? Maybe it's his partner, maybe it's not, but maybe it's somebody that's been with the department longer, and he's trying to focus outward on the crowd that's gathering, because the crowd is cursing, calling names there, and you've got to be wary of that, because again, this is not a home game. This is an away game, because there's so much distrust, and I hate to say it bleeds into mistrust of the police and them being viewed as an occupying force, that this guy was doing the right thing. His job should be to be focused outward. And again, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe everything that you just said is 100% accurate, and he should have gone over and said, hey, what are you doing? But I can also sense how in a situation like that, you all can't be focused on the guy on the ground. You've got to be focused outward too, because you never know where another threat could emerge from. And again, I'm reading into this. I'm kind of giving you the big panoply of all the possibilities. And yes, I am giving him the benefit of the doubt, but maybe your take is more spot on than mine. I trust that we'll find out as the investigation goes on.
Well, yeah, and I didn't notice any stripes on those guys' uniform, so I don't know what their experience was. I wasn't even thinking about it, but I mean, if that guy was like a dire threat, yeah, you obviously, it's not a home game out there, and sometimes you got to scoop people up and get them out of there as fast as possible. Yep. I mean, that's definitely a reason for him to be looking outward. But I mean, if that guy was still a threat, there would have been there would have been dual attention. It just seemed like that guy was
that's an interesting point.
Completely subdued. And that's why the guy was pretty casually, well, not casually, but it appeared like he was completely focused outward. And again, that's appropriate when a guy is completely subdued, because you've got to make sure nobody comes up on you with an ice pick or something or worse.
And not 100%. To, I mean, Monday morning quarterback but it seems like there's a way to be focused outward and still, I don't know.
Well, they
back up. He doesn't have to turn his back on the crowd.
They would do it. He would have been focused. If the guy was still a threat,
right? Then
I reckon there would have been a little more focus on what was going on with the actual guy that was proned out. But again, this is just us spitballing Monday morning quarterbacking and hoping that these cops that there's an explanation for it. But I just can't find one looking at the video.
James, what have you found in terms of the statistics? Things like this happening, are they happening at a greater rate to African Americans than they are to white people or other demographics in this country, or is that not clear? What have you been able to learn in your studies?
So, that's a great question. It's obviously also an exceedingly complex question. And Marty, it depends on how you frame it. I'm sorry, AJ, it depends on how you frame it. And here's the thing. How do you take these things into account? The shame in all this, and I know Marty can speak to this too, is that for the 240 plus years that we've been a nation, there is no mechanism in place to require police departments to report on use of force incidents. And Jimmy Gagliano is going to go on record right here on your show and say this, that is a disgrace. It took until 2019, it was announced in 2018, that the FBI was going to become the aggregate, meaning they were going to become the aggregation entity, if you will, to collect all the data from around the country. Remember, there are thousands, and don't quote me on this statistic, I want to say there's 10,000 plus different police agencies across these 50 states. Now, why did it take us till 2019 for the FBI to begin tracking this? And I get it. The arguments are that law enforcement is a local matter and that, there's people that have issues with the federal government, getting too involved in local matters. But look, there are times where we need it, right? 1964, the Civil Rights Act, if the federal government didn't do that, where would we be as a nation? The Voting Rights Act in 1965, there are times where the federal government has to step up and assume power. We are a representative republic. It's made up of states, but there is a federal government that is over each of the 50 states. So that's a long-winded wind-up to this. We didn't start actually collecting, and gentlemen, I use the term credible data very carefully because obviously it's a newspaper and people have their takes on the Washington Post, and I've had my takes on the Washington Post, but the Washington Post did a good thing in 2015, and they began tracking police incidents of use of force that ended up in fatalities. And that is a critical and important thing, I think. You talk about transparency, you talk about, making sure that our citizens feel like the police are protecting and serving, and that everybody is treated the same, and that we don't police certain communities differently than we police other communities. So the Washington Post began this pursuit back in 2015.
Have you examined their methodology? I mean, how would they get that information to make it?
Oh man, you are scratching my itches right now. Yes. So here and here it is, because it makes it difficult for me in the doctoral pursuit, because obviously, they want you to, when you're pursuing a doctorate, to quote scholarly journals, and your data sets have to be just not above reproach, beyond reproach. They have to be unimpeachable. And unfortunately, the Washington Post right now, here's how they collect their data. They have a team of people. I don't know exactly how many folks it is, but their methodology is to basically blanket the country and look for any blip when it shows up in the news media. So they've got folks that track these things in southern Alabama, in North Georgia, in Paducah, Kentucky, in Boston, Massachusetts, in the Southwest, in the Pacific Northwest. So they track all these things. But basically, and look, it's wonderful that we have the internet. It's wonderful that we have the ability to do this stuff online now, but that's how it's done. And why is that? Because there's no reporting requirement of police agencies. So now I've argued before and said if you make Jimmy Gagliano president for one day, my first order of business by executive order is going to tie all federal funding to police agencies reporting out use of force incidents. So if you're not going to play, if you're going to say, well, we ain't going to let the federal government, and I'm not doing a Southern affect because I am from the deep South,
I know.
but we ain't going to let the federal government track our stuff. We're not going to notify them. Well, that's fine, and you're not going to get federal funding. But that's not there right now, and that has to be done by Congress, I think, because obviously it involves financial coffers, and that's not something the president can really do. So
I imagine there'd be a lot of pushback. Don't you think?
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I said the same thing about sanctuary cities. I mean, it's like, we should tie federal funding into to these things, and I wish I wish our government would be a little bit more heavy-handed when it came to matters like this, like police shootings. Why is it such a difficult thing for a local law enforcement agency to say, "Hey, we had a fatal police shooting last month, and here are the details. It went to a grand jury. The grand jury found that the police officer acted appropriately, and here are the details. The police officer was a 26-year-old white male. I don't want to use the term victim. The fatality was a Asian man who was 33 years old, who was armed with a cudgel and did this." Why can't we be transparent about that? I don't get it. So,
yeah, and the post methodology is a little troublesome to me, but it's a start.
What's troublesome, Marty?
Well, it's troublesome because if they're just going out canvassing news sources, I mean, what's going to make the news? The most outrageous thing. So it's almost.
Hey, Marty.
Yeah?
You want me to really pin your hair back right now?
Yeah. Well, I shaved my head for the COVID. So
just for this interview, right?
Okay.
Just in honor of me, you wanted to look the same.
Exactly.
Hey, Marty. Here's the thing. Yes, there are other means and mechanisms, and I don't want to suggest it is just open source reporting. That is a huge part of it, but it's also keeping track of indictments that are filed in grand jury proceedings and things like that. So I know the Washington Post is doing that. I know the FBI has a team. I think they're working out of where Segis is down in West Virginia, this group that is now tracking this. We don't have any data yet from the FBI. 2019 was the first year that they tracked this. So from my studies, and for, my elucidation on this topic, I've been using the Washington Post data, which is open source. It's readily available to any citizen that goes to the Washington Post and clicks on it. You can get the information from 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, and obviously to date in 2020. Now, I'm going to give you some recent statistics. Now, these are off the top of my head only because I've been grinding through this, but there have been a total of about 5,200 plus, because I haven't checked in the last probably week, but 5,200 plus fatal police shootings from 2015 to 2020. Now, of those, 316, and again, this data is dated because it was probably from a couple of weeks ago, but there were about 320, I believe, that were considered to be unarmed. Now, when you argue about how do you define an unarmed person, because people talk about it all the time, this unarmed man was killed. Well, unarmed just means that they weren't armed with a knife or a gun. Doesn't mean that they didn't pick up a stick and struggle with the officer and hit the officer in the head with the stick. Doesn't mean that they didn't grab the officer's pistol and struggle with the officer for his pistol. That is still considered unarmed.
Yeah,
but I want you to think about it.
That's always been a bee in my bonnet when I hear unarmed. And, anytime you get in a struggle with a cop, there's a gun between the both of you. And a lot of cops are shot with their own guns when they're struggling with someone. And and even like, I remember when I was in Kansas City, there was people were mocking it on TV that the cops shot somebody who attacked them with a barbecue fork. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? How about you take a sharp, 16-inch metal object, and let someone attack you with that? You think that's a deadly weapon? You're damn right it is. I mean, and even like, I don't want to call out my own sister on the podcast, but God bless her. She's a civilian. And she asked me one time, why you don't just shoot the person in the leg? I'm like, first of all, setting aside how hard that is to actually do on a moving person, you say you shoot him in the leg and they fall down on the ground. They're still laying there with a gun in their hand. They can still shoot you. You've got to address the threat and eliminate that threat. So yeah, when the whole unarmed thing is a real bee in my bonnet, and I'm glad you're starting to flesh that out in the media, because I don't really hear anybody else in the media talking about it.
I actually did not realize that until now, that unarmed, I guess if you think through it, yeah. But if somebody steals the cop's gun, they're still considered an unarmed assailant.
Yeah. And that was that was part of the Ferguson situation too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's a great point, Marty. And AJ, to your point, yeah, that's the issue. Is how do you define the parameters? And that's the thing that I'm struggling with right now in my academic pursuit. Because I don't want to go into it with a preconceived notion, and I really want to go in and as the facts emerge, as Marty and I learned in the FBI, follow the facts wherever they go. But how do you define the parameters? And isn't everything related to context? Because when you think about it, and I'll give you some more staggering statistics. There are approximately 250 million contacts that police have with civilians every year. Now, I want you to think about that. 250 million police contacts with civilians. And then I'm going to give you the numbers of quote-unquote unarmed people that have been shot since 2015. 94 in 2015, 51 in 2016, 69 in 17, 47 people in 2018, 41 last year considered unarmed. And again, how do we define unarmed? They define unarmed as somebody that might have violently struggled with a police officer and tried to rip the gun out of their hand. So now, having said that, are there bad shoots? Of course. Are there inappropriate escalations of the use of force like we might have just viewed on that Minneapolis video? 100%. But I guess if anything for your listeners, I just want to put this into the perspective of, or the context of, it is such a rare event for a police officer to take someone's life. I don't believe the vast majority of police officers go to work any day of the week thinking to themselves, I want to take somebody's life. It is something that happens. It's a life-altering event. Do some of them use bad judgment? Yes. Do some of them make mistakes? Yes. Are some of them bad cops? Yes. But the vast majority of people in uniform, the people that are sworn to protect and serve us, guys, they do a great job under just some undoubtedly difficult circumstances every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, and half of those police interactions are AJ getting pulled over for expired tags anyway.
Right. For driving with no pants on.
Exactly.
Who knew?
Who knew that was illegal? But no, all excellent points.
Were those numbers, those yearly numbers, James, have they been broken down by race?
So here's the beauty of it. And again, like Marty will tell you, I have my issues with the Washington Post, but they've done an outstanding job with this. Not only by race, also by gender.
Okay.
Okay.
And then also by, by state. So you can go on there and you can look, and I think, let me give you the breakdowns of the metrics. I think it's race, gender, age, state, and whether or not there were mental health issues. Now, the mental health piece of this, a lot of it is unknown, but if there was somebody with a known mental health history, it's put on there. Look, let's just give credit where credit's due. The Washington Post has done a great job, and I believe actually shamed the U.S. government into getting involved and taking this on. We've not seen any of the results from the U.S. government, But yes, that's how it's broken down. You go there, you pick a year, 2015 or 2019 or 2020 to date, and then you can break it down. How many African American males have been killed by police in 2017? How many African American males in the state of Georgia with underlying mental health condition issues have been fatally shot by police in the state of Arkansas? It is really easy and simple to use. I don't want to be a shill for the Washington Post, but they did a great job with this.
What's the name of that database? How do we search it?
Here's what you do. Washington Post, fatal police shootings. Just Google that and bam, it comes up. And again, you can go in there from 2015 to date and it will give you a running tally, and then it will break down the metrics any way you want to. If you want to know, since 2015, how many people in Arkansas armed with a gun of Asian descent have been killed by police when they were unarmed, it will break that down for you. It gives you all the metrics and it'll break it all down for you.
Have you seen anything, James, just off the top of your head that would lead you to say the numbers are disproportionate for one race or another?
So no, and again, your listeners, because I know the ones that are interested in this stuff are immediately going to go and check this out. So no, I mean, on average, and again, gentlemen, here's the thing: the sample set is just so damn small because we're dealing with 2015 forward, and that is it really is a crime that we're only dealing with such a small sample set. But I believe that, and I'm doing this again off the top of my head, I believe that there was only 1 year where, let's just use unarmed as the metric. Let's use that because that's the one that obviously raises everybody's, gets everybody excited, rightfully so. If you look at it, I think there was 1 year where African Americans there was a larger number, quantity of fatalities as a result of an officer-involved shooting of African Americans than of whites. Now, the corresponding response to that would be, but Jimmy, wake up. Come on. Whites make up 66% of the some 327 million people in the United States. You're right. African Americans make up 12 to 13%. African American males make up about 5 to 6%. So when you're looking at the vast majority of African American males that are killed by police, or African American males who are unarmed that are killed by police, you look at that and it's a disproportionate representation. What it doesn't factor in, and I only share this because you have a smart audience, I know, because if you two guys are doing the podcast, you do. You have to look at rates of criminality. And that's the problem because African American males, I mean, this is no secret, commit a disproportionate amount of violent crime and crime overall in the country. So 5 to 6% of the population commits about 50 to 52% of all homicides in the United States. When you take that into account, AJ, Marty, that is going to engender more police interactions. The more police interactions you have, the more fatal police encounters are going to occur. Now, tell me where I went sideways on that. I think I just gave it to you the way I've got it mapped out. But did that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. And you're basically it's a sociological, economic issue. It's a society issue, basically.
Yeah, that's what it's. And it's a topic I've been interested in quite a while. So it's really, I'm glad that we're having an opportunity, even amongst a tragedy, to talk about it because it's a difficult subject to talk about. Because once you start to get into the realm that you're getting into now, conversationally, it becomes a much deeper historical topic that's intertwines economics, socioeconomics, a history of racism, oppression, like how a community ends up in a dire circumstances. It becomes a really multifaceted, deep, complex conversation.
Right. And it's oversimplified too often. I'm glad you're doing your PhD on this, James. I can't wait to see your thesis because as AJ just said, with all these dynamics involved, Yeah, that it almost sounds callous to just state the statistics that you just stated, but I know they are what they are, but I know that you know it goes deeper and that you know that it's multifaceted. What brings the police to some of these communities of predominantly communities of color, that increases the interactions. That you have more interactions, you're going to have more issues. That's just probabilities. So,
well, guys, I really appreciate, again, the opportunity to do long form like this with you guys, because on CNN and even on some of the radio hits I do on Sirius, you've got 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. You got to speak in sound bites, and you guys let me flesh this out. And I'll just say, for your listeners that do not know me, that only hear, okay, he's a former FBI guy.
Everybody knows you.
Well, no, let's not get carried away. As my wife still says to me all the time, you're not that famous. Get out in the backyard and pick up the dog poop. So that's what keeps me humble. But just to put this in perspective, anybody that wants to look this up, the two things that you guys really just spoke to, which are on point, and again, provide context, which is so important in perspective. I wrote a piece for CNN Opinion back in July of 2017. I don't remember the last date, but people, if they're interested, can Google it. And the title of the piece is called "The Conversation We Need on Police Shootings." And what I did is I spelled out all the things that I just said right there, which defends why police have more interactions or are more prevalent or prominent in high crime areas, which are particularly places that are communities of color. And the people that live there, they want to be protected as well. They want the police to do the right thing. They don't want to feel like it's an occupying army, and I get that. But the column that I wrote, which really speaks to this, it does. It goes back to the fact that, if you look at our history going back to the 13 colonies, I mean, think about that, not just the 240 plus years we've been a nation, but back to the 13 colonies back in the 17th century. The reason why we started a police force in the colonies was as a slave patrol. So as slaves escaped, and they didn't call them police back then, they were slave patrols, but that was really the origin and the genesis of policing.
Wow.
Now, having said that, and I speak to that in this column and explain that. So the perspective of the African American community that sees that, and then sees Bull Connor in Birmingham during the height of the civil rights movement, using fire hoses on the Edmund Pettus Bridge and sending out attack dogs on peaceful protesters. You have to see it from another side, and it's hard.
Right.
I am a white man, and I grew up in the Deep South, and I can't pretend, even though I went to an African American elementary school and an African American high school, I can't pretend to walk in somebody else's shoes. So I caveat it by saying that, looking at it, the things that you just brought up, the socioeconomic conditions. When I speak to rates of criminality, and I do it antiseptically, and I do it as trying to do it as an academic, you're adding in a factor that has to be taken into account, and I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah. It's a holistic situation. Just getting to the bottom of all my African American friends that drive around in fear of the police, and it's like even FBI agents are like, yeah, maybe not in fear, but they're just like a little more circumspect about it than you and I.
Right.
Yeah, and those 100%. Are, like you said, those are shoes that we can't know what it's like to walk in those shoes day after day after day. Give us the title of that CNN article again, James.
Sure. So it published in July of 2017. And if you put my name in, I think the title of it was "The Conversation We Need on Police Shootings."
Okay.
And I don't think anybody can read that. Yeah, I just looked it up. The Conversation We Need on Police Shootings on CNN Opinion. I don't think anybody can look at that and say that I didn't try to give a fair and balanced perspective, saying, hey, we need to have this uncomfortable conversation. Nobody wants to have it. But if we're going to talk about rates of criminality, we also have to talk about the perspective of American policing going all the way back. And like I said, there are 1.2 million people that are part of law enforcement in a country of 327 million. It is literally less than 0.03% of the population. The vast majority of them are good people, but there are folks that aren't, and therein lies the problem. And if an officer acts up or does something wrong or does something questionable, they need to be held to account, and we need to appreciate the perspective from the other side in viewing things.
So where can we go from here, James? Where is there a place to go from here? What is the roadmap?
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm pandering, but I mean, it's things like this. It's long form discussions about it. And, I'm going to go on tonight on CNN, and I'm sure I'm going to be on a panel with folks that are going to be angry and heated about the Minneapolis, the Minneapolis fatality of a man who was in police custody, and people have different perspectives. And if we can get to a point where we're not shouting past each other, or maybe this is it, assuming the worst about someone. And I think that there's where it goes is, assuming the worst about somebody, and then that kind of frames because of their race, because of their gender, because of where they're from, because of the profession they're in. I don't want to sound like, I don't want to sound too goofy in saying that, but in getting past that and having these conversations, and some of these conversations can be uncomfortable, and some of these conversations people get angry and they get heated. And if we can move past that and have these tough conversations, I may hear something I don't want to hear about the policing profession, and somebody else may hear something that they don't want to hear about people that they know or that they associate with or that they're in the same demographic with. If we're able to do that, hey, we can advance the conversation. If we're not, and we're doing it in 280 characters on Twitter, and that's the only place that we engage,
it breaks down.
Gentlemen,
it all breaks down.
It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's why AJ and I are doing this podcast, and I think firmly believe that's the road back for America, which is to be able to talk about sensitive subjects, policing, race, all of them, you name it, and just have sensible conversations and not assume the worst in the person who may have a different opinion. And then that just escalates, and social media is part of escalating that also, but
Yep.
So good faith communication combined with finally keeping these stats and forming a reliable database where people can actually go in and have some kind of mathematical common ground to refer to. So we're not just talking about or coming from a place of emotion.
100%. And what you just mentioned, AJ, is this. It's transparency. If our citizens don't trust the data, if they don't trust that they're hearing the truth, what happens? They think the worst, and it's their right to do so. So, my thing is, the more transparent you are, I mean, that's a good thing for police. I was one of the early, and I'm not going to pat myself on the back on this, but I was one of the early advocates for police body cameras. And there were people in my profession, Jimmy, you're insane. What are you talking about? Don't say that. We don't need that. I get it. Look, I don't want to go to work every day at St. John's or at CNN and have every interaction that I have with people videotaped and audio taped, but the bottom line is I'm no longer an armed instrument of the state.
Right.
And because there is so much polarization and divisiveness around this topic and mistrust again, I was a person that said, I truly believe this, and Marty, I want your take on this as well. I think body cameras exonerate far more cops than they're going to indict, but those that are resistant to it, you can't do that. People deserve to know that police interactions, everybody's treated the same. No matter where you're from, no matter the color of your skin, what God you worship, what you do, you should be treated the same way. And body cameras afford us the opportunity to say, you see, here's a videotape, this is what happened.
Yeah, and most of the street policemen I know, they like the body cameras for that reason. And the thing that sucks the worst is when it malfunctions. Then the conspiracies come out of the wall, But but I think on the whole they're pretty reliable, and I agree that I haven't seen any stats, but I agree that they most likely exonerate way more than they inculpate.
So true.
Yeah, again, as a citizen, I'd say that I can't imagine a good argument for less information.
Oh, 100, well put, AJ. And, I live in upstate New York, and there's a city very close to me, one where I used to coach at the Boys and Girls Club for many, many years, as well as, police when I was the FBI chief for the upstate New York region. And it's a place called Newburgh, New York. And it's a place that's been plagued by drugs and violence and gangs for many, many years. And just recently, there was an interaction between police and a guy who was a suspect in a murder, in a homicide, a couple of days before. And police spotted him on a street corner, jumped out of the car, tried to apprehend him. He pulled a gun. He shot one of the police officers in the shoulder, and another police officer killed him. That same night, a Newburgh City councilman, in the most reckless way possible, live streamed a video from the hospital where the decedent as well as the injured cop were both taken, and said that, here we go again. Police killed an unarmed black man on the streets of the city of Newburgh. In an unprecedented move, the district attorney, a guy by the name of Dave Hubler, released the body camera video that night because the city of Newburgh, this is just a couple of months ago, this is back in March, where there were people riding the streets, burning tires and mattresses, and this is, right when the COVID pandemic thing had started, people on the streets angry and, pitchforks and torches. Releasing that video quelled the violence. Because once he said, the DA said, I don't normally do this in a case where all the facts are not in, but because of this reckless, these reckless comments and this live stream video from a city council member, I am going to release still photos and the video of the officer's interaction to show you the subject, the perpetrator in this instance, who pulled the gun, shooting a police officer. So, to your point, Marty, yes, it's a good thing. Transparency is a good thing. And guess what? It will exonerate, in my estimation, more cops than it will indict. But guess what? The ones that need to be indicted, good damn honest. Good for us having that video. And in instances like this thing in Minneapolis where you've got citizens that videotaped it too, look, the video doesn't lie. So it's not a bad thing to have more transparency as opposed to less.
Well, shit, James, thank you so much for your opinion, man. We were going to have James on to talk about the Michael Flynn situation. And James, we're still happy to get into that, but we also don't want to beat you to death. We know you've got a big day, so it's your call.
Do that another time.
Happy to.
Yeah, can we hold this for another time? And I apologize, guys, because we were prepared to talk about the Flynn case, which I know your listeners will probably be interested in. And guess what, guys? It ain't going away. And since I know a lot of the players involved in this, including Judge Gleason, who's doing the amicus briefing for Judge Sullivan on this case, I know it's going to be in the news again very shortly, and I'm happy to come back. But you know what? I think this was an important conversation to have, and I'm glad you guys gave me an opportunity, a platform to talk about it.
We're glad that you were willing to talk to us about it. It's, it's timely, and like you said, it's important. And, you just gave us the teaser for the Michael Flynn conversation down the road, which we're looking forward to having, man. But thank you for your time. You just gave us an hour, and I think I certainly feel a little more informed for it.
Appreciate it, guys. Like I said, give me a holler when you want to talk about Flynn. I think there's a lot of stuff there to talk about, but great conversation today, and I appreciate doing the readjustment because it really was important we talked about this.
Yeah, we agree. Yeah. Thanks, James.
See you, buddy. Take care.
You got it.
I'm going to get this thing up today.
You're the man.
No, I try to be the man. If I'm not the man, I try to be the man standing next to the man.
Well, you're all of those things. But let's make sure we thank CPA Olive Oil and Laughing Planet also.
Absolutely, CPA and Laughing Planet, which it looks like they're remodeling in there. I need to take a peek in there, but it looks like they're doing some remodeling since they were shut down. So they're taking advantage, and they're going to open up bigger and better than ever.
When they open up and we get James to talk about Flynn, maybe we should fly him out here and
have a bowl.
Get him
have a bowl and then go have a bowl.
Have a bowl and then go get a tofu bowl. At James don't have a bowl.
Right. James
he'll have the
committed.
Tofu. He won't have anything else. But let's So all right, bud. Sounds good.
All
everybody.
Right.
Thanks, everybody.